In Verismo, I think everything is allowed. Verismo is the style where emotions count way more than vocal quality. That doesn't mean that you can do Verismo with no technique, with an ugly voice and whatever. That's not the point. But still, it's not the most elegant way. You have to have the technique, but you use that technique not to build the most gorgeous sound, but you use the technique to almost seduce your voice, to be only the transporter of your emotions and nothing else. It is really squeezing out emotions in a way that is uncomparable to all the other opera styles. As you may know, I'm very keen on always on showing real emotions in every opera, and which is sometimes easy, sometimes not very easy to achieve. In this case, in the Verismo, since the emotions are so strong, it is really difficult and it's very demanding. So in the end of a session, you are not only physically and vocally at your limits, but also mentally. I mean, you have to put in your soul. And after 3 hours of suffering and crying and screaming and you can feel that, I tell you. Well, it's always very difficult to choose arias, even though if you have already an idea, but if the idea is Verismo, obviously there's a lot you could record. The challenge was to find a selection of arias that fit to each other. That's, I think, the most important point. They all had to be good. Not all in the same style, not all in the same mood. It had to be a little bit of a mixture to make the album more interesting. That was a challenge. It was not easy, but I think we achieved it. The Italians make a difference between Verismo and Puccini. So there's Puccini and the Verismo composers, because Puccini had a special style. He was maybe a little bit more elegant and not so direct, so I would even say rude with the emotions. So I recorded an album with Verismo Arias, excluding the Puccini. Pagliacci, Vesti la Giubba, one of the dream come true arias. When I was studying, I would never, ever have thought to one day be able to sing this aria, because it's really demanding, it's really hard, and only the really big tenors had sung it. Now I've done it, now I've recorded it, I can hardly believe it. I had to talk to Tony Papani. He said, "Can you imagine you did it? You really recorded it, we really did it." So I'm extremely relieved and happy to have done this album. Antonio Papano, I know him for quite a long time, is the loveliest guy you can hardly imagine in opera business. He is everything else but selfish. We feel somehow united in our spirits. We have something in common. We both love this Verismo. It's just something that we really adore, to go for it and really give everything you have. It's almost a drug that you have there. I mean, because it drives you really into something that on an emotional, such a high level. It's incredible. And we both look for the same target. So we have the same idea of interpretation. We have the same targets that we try to achieve. And that makes it so easy then to work with him, because we're pulling at the same side and not working against each other. Many of these arias are somehow rarities, because unfortunately nowadays these operas are really only occasionally sung. Of course, there are some real big ones like Pagliacci or Cavalleria Rusticana, or there are some that are played, but I mean most of the others are really forgotten, unfortunately. By the time they've been written, they had a high success, but now they're gone. So the idea was not to find real rarities, things that no one ever recorded before, that are absolutely brand new to the audience. I think you can hardly do that. So that was not the target. The idea was to find operas, to remind people, to say, listen, there are some pieces that are really worth listening to, and unfortunately they are not popular anymore. And actually, I don't know why. because they are so gorgeous and beautiful. The Bohème Leoncavallo version, so not the Puccini Bohème. In this case, the tenor is not Rodolfo but Marcello, so my aria is not to my Mimi but to my Musette, which is a very beautiful aria actually. The whole opera is very interesting. Unfortunately written about a year, or came out about a year after Puccini's Bohème, and although it was a success at that time, now it's forgotten. The aria from Romeo, from Juliet and Romeo from Zandonai, it's the aria at the very end where he discovers in the tomb that his Giulietta is actually really dead and not only pretending to be dead. So he's crying and shaking her and trying to wake her up, and he just can't accept it, he can't believe it. It makes me goosebumps when I think of it, because it's just, it goes so deep. It's actually frightening to have somebody looking into your soul so deeply and so intense. But obviously the result is beautiful. This composition is just gorgeous.